What's up, guys? What's up? Welcome to Off Field. An exciting show we got for you today. I got Scott Shaffer and Brandon Krisztal with me here. I'm Nate Jackson. Off Field, powered by Accurate America. Boom.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hey everybody. Woo! How's it going?
Yeah.
Feeling the woo?
Oh, I'm feeling it.
Feeling the woo.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to Off Field. I'm Scott Shaffer. That's Brandon Krisztal. He's already working. That's Nate Jackson.
The
former
Adam
Bronco, forever
Schefter.
Bronco
The Adam Schefter of Denver right
That's
here,
right.
man.
of Gorilla Sports.
At least it's
Yeah.
Gorilla Sports. You should talk into the mic.
Jesus Christ, Scott. Be a professional for once in your life. Let me start that again. I'm Scott Shaffer, Brandon Krisztal, and Nate Jackson. How you
Cool.
doing, guys?
Yo,
Good, man.
Happy draft.
Yeah, it was a happy
It
draft.
was a happy draft.
busy weekend.
Very busy.
We've got a lot to cover. We're going to cover the Shedeur nonsense. We're going to cover Dre Greenlaw. But first, let's get into the draft picks of the Broncos. Overall, how do you guys think they did?
I'll preface this by saying you never know.
Yeah.
You never know how these guys are going to turn out. They're not all going to be Pro Bowlers. They're not all going to be starters. Some of these guys are going to get cut. Maybe not this year, but maybe one of them. But I think on its face, the Broncos had a very good draft. I like what they did with the first pick, choosing the best player available to them at the time. A guy who they think is a baller, who they had graded highest on their board. He fell to them. They grabbed him. They got a running back. Okay. A playmaking running back. Some are saying is like Sean Payton style running back, whatever the hell that means. They got a receiver.
Yeah.
Added depth to that room, right? We'll see how that one pans out. But some people are saying he reminds them of Michael Thomas.
Okay.
Well, one person was saying
Who
that.
said that?
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton, yeah.
said
Oh,
that.
okay. Well, that's all that matters, right?
It is. If he's got a vision for him and he sees it,
Yeah.
I always go
And then
back.
like let me just finish. And then the defensive end edge guy, big dude, don't know much about him, adds depth to the room. You always need those guys. Then they drafted this Q fella who's like a real good special teams player.
Nick Saban said the best he's ever coached
Yeah,
at
best special
Alabama.
teams player that he's ever had.
High praise.
High praise and a really important role on a team to have guys like that in the special teams room. Core members who set the tone. A punter. We talked about they were going to draft
That's
a
what I
punter,
was saying.
and they did.
I've got it highlighted over here.
Yeah. And then the tight end, who's a basketball player.
Can't wait to talk
player.
about it.
We'll put tight end in quotes.
Yeah.
Can't wait to talk about
4
him.
catches, 4 touchdowns in college.
All he does is catch touchdowns.
Yeah, pretty good percentage there. And then signed a bunch of free agents. We don't know much about those guys, but they're going to get into camp and compete. I like what they did. I feel good about it.
So you're a fan. Brandon, how say you?
Yeah, I am too. It's funny because when you talk about grading draft classes, people are like, well, you can't grade it for 3 years,
Sure.
which is true. That's grading them against the league,
Yeah.
and how they perform on their team and in the NFL. But you have to grade it just against the other classes for now, and where people think you got value or positional value. Like the Cowboys took that guard at 12, which was one of the players I nailed both the player and the position
Hey,
in my mock draft.
Family show.
But the
guys.
positional value of guard at number 12 is never going to sit well with most teams unless that's
Sure.
a guy that you just have to have. Sort of like when Jahmyr Gibbs went high, I think it was also 12, and they're like, what are the Lions doing? They could get him into the second round or whatever. But I think that's a home run pick. But because you do that, and you're like, well, why not an edge guy? Why not another, a tackle or a corner? Because they could have drafted Shedeur Sanders at 12, obviously. Sure. He was 10th on the Broncos board. But I think that's where you start to get into, we had higher positional value, so there was this chart that Warren Sharp does, and the Niners, I guess, always take the biggest swings based on, everyone else's rankings.
Yeah.
But the Broncos were like third lowest or whatever. If you look at this chart,
third lowest, is that good or bad?
Like bad based on, the consensus.
overswinging
Yeah,
on
like
stuff?
overswinging.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Yeah.
can send this to Andy and we can kind of just see it to see which teams are.
Kind of like how Bo Nix, they overdrafted Bo.
Exactly.
and
Same
Pat's a
thing.
10,
So I'll see if I can find it, but it's also it doesn't really matter because your board is your board. The hundreds of draft experts have their boards. I think based on where this team is, I like a lot of their draft. And if the running back turns out to be a stud, then you're going to love it. And then Sean's offense is going to have a chance. And if the tight end turns out to be anything, then you're going to be like, holy cow, they got another Jimmy Graham or Julius Thomas.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham. I mean, it's
Same body frame because Jimmy Graham was a former basketball player too.
And
Yeah.
that
He
big.
played a little bit more football than
Played
this
a little
guy.
more football. He was a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
He went to the combine. This guy, Jacob Lohner, didn't
Loner.
because no one wanted to hang out with him.
No,
He's a loner.
Caleb Loner.
But
Whatever.
body type, athletic ability. Now I have been, and I guess we're going to start talking about the last pick,
Absolutely.
the 7th rounder. But
we'll get there.
but I'm saying
Oh,
I'm
you want
going
to
to
talk- oh, yeah.
start talking about him now.
Let's do it.
I'm just going.
I'm
to
excited.
Go in reverse order.
I guess the point I was making is that I've been around the process of trying to turn a basketball player into
Sure.
a football player. We had a guy named Wesley Duke who was a basketball player in college, freakish athlete, so yoked and athletic, but he had never played football.
Sure.
Didn't even actually suit up.
Just
college
played
at all.
basketball.
Yeah, and so they wanted to turn him into a football player because he had the potential, but it was so hard because he just had the little tiniest fundamentals, like a 3-point stance. He had he had to work on his 3-point stance, and then he had to work on
Explain it to me like I'm 5 type of stuff.
basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the technique. I mean, you could know what a 3-point stance is,
Sure.
but when you go out there and you realize, oh, I don't really know how to do this right because I need to be able to go that way, that way, that way, or that way out of this stance, so it has to be firm. That takes time to figure that out. So there's a lot of basics that he's not going to get. Now he has played some football, but a work in progress. They got Adam Troutman in that room. They got Evan Ingram in that room. Jacob Lohner is not going to be asked in game 1 to win them the game.
And Lucas Kroll's still there.
And Lucas Kroll, who's
Yeah.
actually kind of a similar body type to this new guy.
So a little
So
bit shorter. Same.
yeah,
same
just a
weight.
little bit shoulder,
Yep.
but the big freakish athlete type of guy.
Yeah.
So intriguing prospect, super excited about that. But when you go back to the other offensive weapons they got, the running back, rush for 1,500 yards basically in consecutive seasons.
Yep.
And that's the type of workload you like from a guy who you're going to draft and want to put in that room. When you left, you got rid of Javonte Williams, and they don't know who knows what the plan is for Audric Estime. How did they view Audric Estime in this room?
Well,
Greg?
and Sean talked about it, that the whole room's young. I guess Jaleel McLaughlin is the
elder statesman
the
at
elder
24.
statesman, because Watson was a rookie last year, but Day's, I guess, probably the same age. But McLaughlin certainly played the most football, had the most snaps. So it is a young room. What I think they'll end up doing, if Estime hasn't made enough strides, and the thing with Estime is their issue is he fumbles the ball.
Sure.
We're not going to be able to see if he's any better at that really until they get into a preseason game.
Yeah.
If he's fumbling in training camp practices, then you are going to know it's a problem. So, but are there the handful of vets, the Nick Chubbs of the world, that they might look at into training camp? Not through the spring at all. It's going to be a young room. I'm excited to see what Harvey can do. But when you talk about Lohner and him playing basketball and now turning into a football player, RJ Harvey was a dual threat quarterback that could really sling it, even though he's not very big. He went to Virginia to play quarterback. He wore number 7 because of Mike Vick. He had 42 touchdowns as a senior throwing the ball. And I can't think that they
In
were
high
all
school?
little dump offs. Yeah. In Orlando. He's not from.
Look at those guns.
Yeah, he's
too,
not
man.
in the biggest class.
How do you
in
throw
Florida,
the football with arms like that?
Too. Yeah.
I know how. Bam.
Yeah. Yeah. There was no issue on him getting on his arm strength. So, and what's funny is
I was saying you might have to do that again.
I know how. Bam.
at UCF, he only threw 4 passes. And
Yeah.
he completed 3 of them. But Sean likes to get tricky. I'm not saying that we're going to see that a lot, but maybe we'll see it. This is a kid that can throw the football.
When you have that skill set, Sean Payton's famous for finding what his players are good at and setting them up to succeed in that position. I guarantee you that was like, relative to, we could.
Hey, Taysom Hill could throw. Well, but
no,
so
he'll definitely. I guarantee you, RJ Harvey will throw a pass this season.
you played with Rod Smith.
Yeah.
Possibly to Lohner.
Rod
Yeah.
Smith.
6'7".
It's a coin toss, but I still have Rod ahead of DT as the best receiver in Broncos history.
Yeah.
But Rod was a college quarterback. And when you have college quarterbacks, Wes Welker was a really good high school quarterback. When you have guys that played quarterback for a long stretch of their life, even Steve Atwater.
Edelman.
A lot. You
yeah,
find a
Julian
lot.
Edelman.
I was a quarterback. For
Yeah.
1 year.
Well, and that's,
I bet you slung it.
I actually was a backup.
But you still had
that's
to
why I
see
changed
how
positions.
but I think it can be an advantage versus a guy that only does one thing. And the NFL is full of running backs and wideouts and even tight ends that were quarterbacks. So it's not like this is. But if they were good quarterbacks, and you don't go to Virginia on accident, you know, I mean, it's a big school and a big conference. It just gives you. CJ Anderson was this way too. Like you can see the game a little bit better, and it helps the quarterback because they don't have to tell you there's a shorthand. So that's why Wes Welker and Edelman and guys like that were so good, because they saw the same thing their quarterback was seeing. And so I think that can be an advantage too when you have, versatile guys that see the whole field as opposed to, I'm blocking that guy or that guy, or
Yeah, and it's really rare that a running back can throw. Actually, those guys have some of the worst arms on the field, because they never have to throw. They just take the ball and then they run it back. You know what I mean? But receivers, they can throw the football because they're always running down the field, catching it, and then they got to throw it back to the ball boy.
Sure.
But running backs, like whenever we would have a running back pass, it was always like an audition for the running backs to see which one of them could throw.
Yeah.
And we'd run the play at practice, and Coach Shanahan would give all the running backs an opportunity to do the play. And it was pretty pathetic. Some of these guys trying to cock it back and throw it.
Well, we're not having that play in the play.
Was there one that sticks out? You're like, oh, he could throw it a little bit. Can you even think of one?
No.
I mean, you played with a lot of running backs.
Yeah.
But
no, they're all really bad at throwing the ball,
Yeah.
which makes
That's
RJ Harvey's ability to throw the ball very interesting and very unique. And so, yeah, I guarantee you Sean Payton's got that play.
And he's no stranger to a gimmick play. He loves the trick plays.
Well, he goes on surprise onside to start the season against the Raiders.
Well, I feel like we've talked about a bunch of guys. We've been jumping around. Should we just dive into the draft?
Let's go through these other guys a little bit too, because I know we have some cool graphics for them. So let's talk about the first round draft pick just a second, real quick, and go over that guy, Shedeur Sanders. I know we talked about him last week on Friday, but surprised some people that it was a cornerback taken when Riley Moss is kind of a fan favorite, and people really like Riley. But his body of work, I think, is not big enough to put him in pen as your starting corner.
Yeah.
You have to create competition in that room. Riley Moss has been hurt for 2 straight seasons. I don't say that, in a way to disparage him. I got hurt a lot. I got hurt all the time. It sucks. Like sometimes guys' bodies, eventually snap. Something goes wrong more so than other guys, and you have to prepare for that eventuality. Even if you love the guy's ability, you want to put him on the field as long as he's healthy, but you also have to prepare for him not being healthy. And that's exactly what they did here by creating depth at the position. And when you talk to people, he could play anywhere in the secondary. Now, maybe that's going to help if, Jaquan McMillian goes down, then he can play that, and then Riley Moss plays that. Or if the safety goes down, like this kind of pick, I know they'll probably want to start him at corner, but even if he doesn't end up starting, he'll be able to spell guys all across the secondary in a variety of nickel and dime packages where you need multiple DBs. His versatility and his tackling ability, which when you watch his highlight tapes, it's not just him covering guys, it's him coming up and making tackles in the backfield. He attacks the football. That's a rare trait for a corner to be able to do that. And I think a guy who is a ball hawk, a hungry player like that, wants to get better and can attack a ball carrier and drop him in his tracks is something that's really valuable, especially in the NFL.
Yeah. So do you think, Brandon, that they got their guy, or is this the best cornerback at 20?
Yeah, the fact that he was available is what shocked them. He was, and I have it on pretty good authority, he was number 10 on their board. And the one thing you heard about this draft was there weren't a lot of first-round grades. There's never 32 first-round grades for any team. They almost pride themselves in saying that we had 19 this year. We had 21.
We only have one first-round grade in this draft.
But so
it's Shedeur Sanders.
But I think it was closer to 12 for the Broncos, 12 to 13, 14. It wasn't a lot, and I think that was pretty consistent. So for the guy that's 10 on their board to slide all the way and be there at 20 and see that teams ahead of them had other needs and hope that no one jumped in, they were, I think, elated. And so, Chris Harris Jr., who's obviously does a lot of stuff with us around here and was a big part of our draft show too, he was a guy that once he finally earned his spot on the field in base downs, he was opposite of Champ for a little bit and then certainly Aqib Talib. And then when they went 3 corners, which is 70% of the time, he'd be inside a fair amount and Bradley Roby would be outside. And so it feels like he's going to be like this. And then one more, you talk about injuries. Yeah, they have PJ Locke back. They're developing Skinner. But let's say Hufanga goes down. There's certainly a scenario where he can start as your strong safety if you need him to, or your box safety. Because Jeff Legwald, who's done this forever, I think this is his 40th draft or whatever. And he ranks top 100 for ESPN, not just for because he covers the Broncos. He's a draft guy and has, I think, really good eye for this. He said that all his years of doing this, he's never remembered seeing a guy who never missed a tackle. Like he had 0 missed tackles on all the tape that's out there of him.
No way, dude.
I'm telling you what Jeff said. It's not me saying this.
He's never.
No, Jeff said he
dump,
didn't see that. He just said he didn't see him miss it. But that being, just with that, you're like, well, he definitely doesn't miss a lot of tackles or too many.
And that's huge these days, the way NFL defenses are. I mean, they keep everything in front of them. It's a short pass game these days, and you got to come up and make tackles. And if you can't and you miss these tackles, these guys are going to be gone. But the imperative of having defensive players, not just up front linebackers, but defensive backs who know how to tackle is huge. And Pat Surtain's a very good tackler. And Riley Moss is a pretty good tackler. But this guy only makes this secondary better.
Yeah. I like it.
I like the pick. You talk about value. Yeah. Getting, if he's a true frontline corner, outside in, but he's going to be on the field 100% of the time like Pat Surtain, you're getting one of the toughest positions because you're covering $40 million receivers now and $30 million receivers.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the pick as well. And round 2, we already talked about.
Do you Kansas City?
I
Chief
do. I
guy?
love the pick.
I'm just kidding.
No, I like anyone from Texas. Like you said,
Yeah.
the great tacklers I think stand out to coaches and fill in a lot.
Yeah.
And I think they love that guy.
Yeah.
Move on to round 2. We talked about RJ Harvey a little bit.
Yeah.
I had to ask you a question because he was described as having a compact frame and being a blue collar back. Does that mean that some scouts see him as a third down back? Because you already talked about how athletic he is.
Yeah.
Why would that be just a third down back? Do those two descriptors make you think third down back?
No, I don't think that. I think third down backs are guys who can, pass protect and catch the ball out of the backfield typically, because third down backs are, you're probably throwing the ball. That's what the idea is. But this is a guy who rushed for 1,500 yards. This is an every down back, in my opinion. The question is how you want to use him. Do you want an every down back?
Yeah.
I mean, Sean Payton doesn't like every down back.
Sean Payton got to remind himself to run the ball.
I mean, look, Sean Payton's not going to change, and this is what this draft shows you. They didn't trade up to get Ashton Genty. They didn't get a guy who they're going to have on the field every single play and give the ball to 25 times a game. I don't think RJ Bush is going to, or Harvey, RJ Bush. Who's RJ Bush?
Well, I think you're thinking
Reggie Bush.
Yeah. I don't think RJ.
His middle name might be start with a J.
Yeah,
Reggie
that's
Bush.
true.
Reggie James Bush.
Reggie James.
It's like,
I don't think RJ Harvey's
Now
going to get 25, 30 carries a game.
Sure.
Like, Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry. I think Sean Payton is going to be Sean Payton. He's going to spread the ball around. Jaleel McLaughlin will still have a role in this offense, I believe. They got their joker, Evan Ingram, who's got to get a lot of passes.
Yep.
They got a new receiver who we're going to talk about in a second. They got these other receivers who they love. They got Jacob Loader now, who they want to get the ball to. So there's only one football to go around. And I think that these picks were reflective of a philosophy that's not changing.
Sure.
He is still going to have to, I'm going to answer your question. Yes, he is still going to have to run it on his play sheet because he's still going to forget to do that.
Sure.
And it's fine. The Broncos are still going to find ways to win, but we're going to still get frustrated when the run is working in the first half and he stops doing it in the second half.
Yeah.
Sean's going to Sean. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep, sure.
Relative to other coaches.
Well, and going back to what we were talking about with how we presume understands the game.
Sure.
When you've got a converted quarterback at running back, the biggest thing for a young running back, really all running backs, but to get on the field as a rookie in the passing game is to show that you've got the ability to pick up the blitz and see where it's coming.
Yep.
So you have to think that a guy that's been a really good high school quarterback and was a college quarterback probably grades out well in blitz pickup.
Sure.
And so that'll keep him on the field. But you're right. Even when he had Deuce McAllister, he mixed in Reggie Bush and Darren Sproles, and certainly Mark Ingram and Kamara. Yeah, Kamara became the workhorse more, but he still had Latavius Murray. Sean doesn't. There's not a Derrick Henry in Sean's offense. I'm not saying he couldn't figure out how to use Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
But he wants as many toys as possible because he knows that he's smarter than most defensive coaches and is going to throw everything at him.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you already alluded to it. Round 3, wide receiver, Pat Bryant out of Illinois.
Pat Bryant. Look, I saw, I didn't know much about him prior to the draft. After the pick, I watched his highlights and stuff like that. I mean, he's a 6'3", 200-pound kind of prototypical tall receiver body who has good body control, not blazing speed, but to me, some very good footwork, some good hands, some good body awareness, some good ability, catch radius, ability to open the hips, good feel for zones and things like that. And ultimately, that's the kind of skill set when you're an offensive coach with as much vision and detail as Sean Payton that you really like to work with. He talked about Michael Thomas, some comparisons there with Michael Thomas, who was a second-round pick and holds the record in the NFL for most receptions in a season with 149 catches, which is, I don't know, that might have been a 16-game season at the time.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's almost 10 catches a game. I mean,
Sure.
Not as much as I average in college, but close.
Close.
So
Sean knows that.
Sean,
He knows that.
look, I almost ended up on Sean Payton's Super Bowl winning team in 2009.
Really?
Yeah, and I got
That was when you're called in for the.
Yeah, it was four of us
workout.
got a workout. None of us got signed, but they went on to win the Super Bowl, man.
Because of you, I think.
Well,
You helped.
You showed them something.
You should get a ring. You were there.
It
You
was
should
an
get a ring.
inspiring moment.
Some
for
guys
those
get traded. They get a ring. Why can't you get
I
a ring?
should have got a ring.
That's
You're right.
bullshit.
So did Jeb Putsier, who was there,
Sure.
and a couple other guys. But the detail with which they communicate their passing philosophy helps guys get open. It helps them succeed. Jimmy Graham led the league in catches as a tight end. Michael Thomas led the league, broke the record. Darren Sproles, all-purpose yardage. Reggie Bush was a beast in that system. So this system is set up to benefit the pass catcher. If you can learn that system and create a rapport with the quarterback, right?
Sure.
But the thing is, I don't think anybody on this team is going to catch 150 passes in a season.
Not this year.
Not this year. Also, not just because that guy's not here, but also it's just spreading out. Like it's not, Bo Nix would commonly last year throw passes to 9 or 10 guys in the same game.
Sure.
All 3 running backs, all 5 receivers, 2 tight ends, all catching passes in the same game. That's rare.
Yeah.
That's rare to have
the fullback and the H-back.
Yeah.
Nate Atkins. It seemed like
Yeah, exactly.
every time he caught the ball, he was scoring, but
Yeah.
most teams aren't throwing the ball to that guy.
Right. And so it just shows you that this team, there are no Michael Thomases, there are no
Sure.
Jimmy Grahams yet. Will there be in the future? Sure. But it was I think it's an effective way. I mean, whoever's open, it's like the Tom Brady, like Peyton Manning, whoever's open, I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah.
And so who will emerge as like the guy who's going to always catch it when you throw to him? I think that's still up in the air, but I like this pick.
Well, what's interesting about this pick is you talk about draft experts. He was firmly a day 3 pick on all those people's boards, but as long as you like him, that's kind of all that matters. He ran a 4.61 40, and you talked about he didn't have blazing speed. Michael Thomas and Cortland ran almost the exact same. They were 4.45 and 4.49 or something. I'm sorry, 4.45s, but they were a couple hundredths of seconds apart. And they're built about the same. This dude loves blocking. He says his motto is you got to block to get the rock. So he is a guy that is invested in the run game.
New T-shirt coming from Girl Sports.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
And yeah, maybe we should put that up before someone else trademarks it. But
you mean the No Val gang?
The funny thing was I saw a highlight and people that are worried about his separation. Watch this, and like he catches a little hitch, and it was against some Big Ten team, breaks away, but runs like 60 yards and still gets caught at the 10. And I'm like, I think you're making the case for people to say he's not as fast as he would like, because Marvin Mims isn't getting caught and Troy Franklin isn't getting caught, but just showing that he can do something with kind of nothing. The one thing too about the first 3 guys that they picked, and I don't know if this matters, sort of like how everybody used to play quarterback, or most MLB players, if they're not left-handed, were shortstops.
Sure.
All 3 of these dudes were captains, team captains. And I don't think you would have enough of those guys. I understand you'll have a lot of team captains when you're drafting players from college that were studs, but I think it says something when you're adding just more good character and leadership. We certainly saw that in our interactions with Shedeur Barron. You watch him talking to the Broncos media team one-on-one. You can see the leadership skills.
I think it means they can learn a system too. Like they trust him in that system, and you can just bring him into the shop.
I will say that probably every dude who got drafted was a team captain.
At some
he's
point.
Like the best player on it.
Yeah.
One of the best players on his team.
Yeah.
But that said, the character is important, and I'm sure they did their due diligence and like the guy. You got to like the guy because you're going to be working with him every day. And we're going to get this into this in the second half of the show, but there's a guy out there who didn't get drafted because guys didn't want to work with him because they didn't think they would, be able to vibe with him. And that really matters. You know what I'm saying? And so these 3 guys hopefully are going to fall in, and especially these 3, the top 3 picks, you want them to be involved.
Well, so real quick, I heard a couple of draft experts describe Pat Bryant as being kind of like playing inside and outside as a former receiver. Tell us what that means.
Well, it means you have the ability to play the slot, so you can run routes over the middle, and you can, understand coverage as well there. You can separate versus man coverage. You can, hit the seams. You can find the soft spot in the middle of the field.
Also win in traffic, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's muddled up there. You're going to get hit as well. But realistically, like, you play in a Sean Payton system, you're going to have to play everywhere. It's not just like you're always outside. Although Michael Thomas was an X receiver and Cortland Sutton is that X guy, but
Marcus Colston was.
Yeah, but still, like, you're going to move around a lot. There's a lot of pre-snap motion. There's a lot of shifting, especially in the Shanahan offense that I was in. I mean, you had, if you knew one, you had to know them all. I mean, you're going to be in the middle. You're going to be over here. You're going to go in motion over here. You're going to be running across the middle. You're going to be on the outside running a go, or we call it an acute route with a little comeback stuff. Like, you got to run every route in the book, but certain body types sometimes are pegged for slot receivers, like like Wes Welker, like the prototypical like little dude.
Yeah,
that isn't always how it has to be in the slot. You remember Larry Fitzgerald famously at the end of his career moved in and was a slot receiver, and he's 6'3", 220. So it doesn't. You don't have to be a certain body type. I guess it's a certain skill set and a willingness to make, like Brandon said, some tough catches in traffic.
Sure. So sticking to the third round. Xavier Jones,
going
to the defensive side. How do you like it?
Well, it surprised us. It didn't. It didn't.
It's surprised that he was there.
No. That they decided to grab one more pick because we thought, oh, this round's over, and now let's focus on day 3, because they went into the draft with 7 picks, and to take you through it real quickly. So George loves making deals. Like, he grew up with Rick Spielman. I say grew up, but like the Vikings are one of those teams that make a lot of trades, and George has made some trades here. As George told us, this was the first time Sean had traded back. When you talk about what they did at the start, they were supposed to pick 51 and 85. Well, as 51 is getting closer, we find out that they're trading back to 57 with Carolina and picking up pick 230s. Now they have a 7th rounder, getting rid of one of the 6s, and they moved up 11 spots in the 3rd and in the 4th, or in the 4th and the 5th, whatever it was, 3rd and 4th. Then they moved back 3 more spots with the Detroit, and it's like, and just keeping track, it was like a math equation.
It was a little excessive.
It was, like. And then they jumped. It felt like it. Somebody coined.
I'll trade you 52 and 85 for 59 and 68. Okay,
right.
And then I'll trade you 72 and 132 for 82 and 125, and then I'll trade you 79 for 2. Like,
these don't sound like real numbers, Nate.
That's what they were doing,
and it was that. It was hard to keep track, but they started with 7, ended up finishing with 7.
Sure.
One of them being Savion Jones here. Savion, I think I've heard both. And when we talked to him, he projects as a guy that's going to rotate on the inside with guys like Zach Allen, and
he's a big boy.
Yeah, I mean, 280. Like, I get that they line him up plenty. He said he can play inside, play 3 tech, and all that. And in a scenario where JFM comes around and isn't happy that he's on just the 2nd year of a new deal he negotiated last year when he got traded, but he wants more money. We know Zach Allen would like more money. Nick Benito's getting a new deal. If JFM decides, and I'm not saying he is going to decide this, then you can insert this kid into the rotation a little more. But solid player. I don't think he's going to wow you, but you need guys like that, and maybe he can give you more than you might think. But a 3rd rounder, you're expecting to be in there and play almost right away, especially at that spot.
Yeah, Nick Benito is going to be like FDR this year. He's getting the new deal.
My dad is going to love that joke if he watched. Moved on to round 4.
Did your dad watch?
No, he doesn't watch.
Not yet.
Too much Broncos talk.
Yeah.
Well, it's not
exactly.
It's not the Broncos talk. If he knows that there's going to be some World War II era talk, he'll be in.
He's in.
He'll be in. Round 4, Q Robinson. Outside linebacker from Bama.
Look at that special team.
Yeah, so
body.
he was described as a tweener body.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that a lot. Can you guys explain to me what a tweener body means?
Is he tweener? What, between
is that good or
DB
bad?
and linebacker, or linebacker and
I think
end?
No, I think it's like edge off the ball linebacker. Like, I guess.
Yeah. So I'll say this: like, a lot of times these. Okay, so he's been described, and we talked about this at the top of the show, as a special teams like demon, right?
Yeah.
Like one of Nick Saban's favorite special teams players ever. And in my experience playing special teams, the defensive players are usually better at special teams than offensive players.
Sure.
Like, because they know how to tackle, they know how to track a ball. Offensive players are, we're
not afraid of getting hit.
Offensive players are not afraid to get hit. Defensive players don't get hit like offensive players get hit. But what I'm saying is, defensive guys are really good attackers on special teams, and the guys who can really run, like linebackers and bigger DBs are your best special teams players.
Yeah,
because they can play every special team. The big 4, kickoff, return, punt, return, and they can play in a lot of different areas. And they're fast and they're aggressive and they can hit and they know how to tackle, like I was saying. And so those guys like him, are incredibly valuable to a special teams unit, because he can do all 4 and he can be on the field. So, and when you play all 4, you're on the field for about 25 or 30 plays a game. It's a lot.
Sure.
So you don't, sometimes people minimize the effect of special teams and special teams players, but when you're a core member, you have a big impact on the game. You can have a big impact on a game, and a guy like him, who's part of a program like that, who's prepared for the next level. And then sometimes you got to plug him in on defense when there's injuries and stuff like that, because you can only suit up 45 guys for a game. There might be guys who are better linebackers who aren't going to suit up, but because he's a special teams core player, he's out there. But then, a guy goes down in the game, he's got to go get defensive reps. Like famously, Keith Burns, who was our special teams ace, Pro Bowler year after year, every once in a while he'd have to go in and play starting linebacker, starting middle linebacker, and he would do it well because he was good at it. And he was just a really good football player with a ton of experience. So I see him being like maybe that Keith Burns type of player.
Yeah, and they have another one of those guys with Shedeur Sanders that they're moving back inside.
Yeah, Drew.
And Drew started at Alabama, finished at Arkansas. He obviously got hurt last year in the spring and played at the end of the year. And it was easier to get him back on the field off the edge and on special teams.
Sure.
But they want him inside as one of their 4 linebackers. And I know we're going to get to Dre Greenlaw here in a second. But I think that with Q, you've got some of that versatility. They brought Justin Sternad back.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'll be up every week. He only played 400 snaps at Alabama on the field and in the run pass game. A ridiculous number of special team snaps. And again, Nick Saban said he was the best special teamer he's he had in his time in Alabama, and he had a lot of them.
It's got to help draft stock right there.
And so I think he just needs more time to develop. They say he's kind of struggles in the run game, at least to this point, but has good pass rush moves and the ability to get on mix. But he was behind guys like Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and a bunch of just first round studs that it's hard to really get into the game when you're behind these guys that are going to go high in the first round.
But they got a value pick there, I think, for what they want. And I think they addressed a need with every one of these picks. And let's move on to the most one.
I was gonna say we've talked about this round 6 pick for a while.
Yeah,
we got a punter.
Yeah,
sorry, you guys got a punter.
Well, they used to have three. They used to have 3 6-rounders going in. They ended up with just one, and they made it count as the only team in the entire draft to select a punter. Now,
Jeremy effing Crawshaw.
The Patriots drafted a long snapper. They used a draft pick on a long snapper.
Love that.
It's Crawshaw.
Crawshaw.
Yep, we can take that.
Yeah,
and he's an Aussie, mate.
I started the show without even using the microphone. Okay, mistakes are gonna be made.
Right? Yeah, and there's this Australian punter farm thing going on where it's a pretty interesting phenomenon. All these Aussies who end up being in the NFL, like it's,
and at least college have filtered a bunch of kids to college, and then a bunch.
Here's another one, and so we needed a punter, and we talked about this, and they got their guy. So look, the value of having a punter who can kick the crap out of the ball with accuracy, timing, and hang time. It can flip the field for you, and it can win you football games.
Sure.
Having an inconsistent punter who is inaccurate can ruin it for you and lose football games for you. I'll give you a quick example. When you're on punt team, you huddle up, and before it's not like there's complex plays being relayed to you, but the direction of the punt is told to you in the huddle. So when I'm line up for punt and I block my guy, I release to the area that I was told the punt is going to. So if it's deep right, I'm going to release and go to deep right. Okay. Yeah. If the punter sucks, and I've been around that before, and it says deep right and I'm running deep right, but it actually goes deep left or shallow left, you got a bunch of guys going one way, the punt's going the other way.
And then the returner's going.
And then the returner has an easier time there.
Yeah.
A punter who always kicks it where he says he's going to kick it allows the team to converge on that kick in a way that allows your defense to set up right there and allow no return yards. And that's huge. I mean, every little yard counts. It's a game of inches. You guys have heard that before. And it's true.
And it's true.
That's what you hear that every day.
I hear it all the time. Which
it's a game of inches.
2 minutes is a long time, guys. I don't care what you say.
2-minute warning.
That's right. All right. Round 7.
Yeah.
Fun pick. Caleb Lohner.
Yeah.
Out of Utah.
Right.
We really should have his basketball pictures up as much as anything. This dude played 5 years of college hoops.
Yeah, 5 years at BYU, Baylor, and Utah.
Wow.
So it's like he was at Portland State, like our guy Julius Thomas. I mean, those are all big programs.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was
all I know.
He was a role player.
He was a role player. Let me tell you this. You see this picture right here, right? He better pull those pants down because uniform inspector is going to dock him right there. You got to have that.
We got a narc in here. I forgot.
You can see the top of his quad muscle there. The NFL's not going to like that.
He's not even a rookie yet, and you're just already ready to find him.
Let him know.
No, the rules are different, but they don't want any skin showing on your leg in the NFL. They don't. No, the only skin that can show is your neck and your hands, or your arms. I'm sorry, your arms and your hands and your neck. They don't want any skin in your legs to show.
Every now and then, guys' socks will just kind of slide down.
Oh yeah.
But
more than you'd think.
More than you'd think. But you can tell if it's
I never cared. But now that I have to see that, I see the game that way now. I'm like, Jesus.
You know, it's about to 30 off though.
And
it just reminded me, and we hadn't talked about this, although there are 2 kind of uniform things now that we should at least touch on at the very end. But the Utah is an Under Armour team.
Yeah.
Under Armour has a partnership now with the league where players' gloves and shoes can have the logos on them. Before it was Nike only.
Okay.
So Under Armour and Reebok and whoever put out, if they had cleats or New Balance or whoever, they're basically plain, like you can't, they're white and you can't, or team color.
Yeah.
You couldn't even see the logos really. And now Under Armour, that's going to confuse things for you a little, I guess. You can handle it.
I'll be all right.
Yeah. If they have to adjust, you can adjust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want the one of the uniform thing? Because it was announced literally right as the draft started, which was weird timing.
If you want to do it, yeah, do it.
So because everybody loves the throwbacks, certainly around here. And now they've given more flexibility this year. They can wear all white if they want. They don't have to wear the blue uniform with the white helmet, or they can wear white helmet with orange. They introduced, and they're going to do it over the next 4 seasons, I believe, 2 divisions, rivalry uniforms that you'll wear once a year. And we don't even know what they look like yet. They're kind of like I heard some rumblings. They might be like the City Connect, where like they're maybe the same colors, but maybe way different. And so Broncos will wear them against the Chiefs. Like Broncos and Chiefs will both be in those, but it's NFC West and AFC East. So Bills, Dolphins will be wearing it, and Patriots, Jets, and then Niners, Rams. That's the only teams that'll have them this year. And over time, everyone will have them.
This has a chance to just blow up in their face.
Why?
People are going to buy
Well,
it.
because people will
Yeah,
buy them.
it's
But
How many
like,
times have people bought a
the
black
City
Chiefs
Connect-
jersey, yellow Chiefs jerseys?
a lot. I get that, but
Yeah.
the City Connect ones are kind of like, it kind of divides the room. I mean, the Rockies right now, they look like pit crew.
Talk to anyone there.
in
Let's see
NASCAR.
what those sales are. I guarantee those things sell
Yeah.
better than the green ones.
I didn't
And
say
the
they wouldn't.
NBA changes it every year because the City
Sure.
Connect also has the Jordan logo on it.
Mhm.
I don't know if they're going to go that far with this, although that would help too.
Yeah.
But I think they'll sell plenty. I mean, you've seen lots of yellow and black
Sure.
Chiefs jerseys. We've seen black Broncos jerseys over the year. The camo.
Yeah.
They sell. People buy jerseys, and it's a moneymaker.
Yeah.
But so that's coming too. But we should get back to Caleb.
Yeah,
Warner.
because we
Sorry.
still got to get into Shedeur Sanders
Sure.
and what happened there, because that was the story of the draft. But let's talk real quick about Caleb and his ability to make a difference on this offense. Sean Payton has a vision for him. The question is, can you withstand the physicality of the NFL and get open against these guys who
Sure.
are up in your chops, right?
Yep.
You're going to be taller than everybody. But what that does is exposes your body and your head.
Yep.
You're going to get your ass kicked. Okay, so are you able to get low and get off a press? Are you able to handle the physical stuff and get down in your stance, come out of your stance, strike somebody? Because you're not just going to be able to go out there and we're not just going to throw you fades every play. You're
Sure.
going to have to do more football stuff. And I know Julius Thomas kind of was this he was sort of an anomalous player. He wasn't really ever asked to block. And I don't know, I don't know how much blocking they asked Jimmy Graham to do. Probably not a lot. But you got to do it at practice. You got to be a tight end at practice, and you got to go through everything that everyone else in that room goes through to be able to be given your chance on Sunday to go up and catch a fade in the end zone.
Sure.
Okay, you got to go through the tough stuff with everybody else, and you got to bring your lunch pail to work and your hard hat and learn those skills. Because again, you never know in the course of a game what's going to happen if a guy gets hurt and all of a sudden Adam Troutman gets hurt. Now you have to get your hand in the dirt,
Yep.
Jacob, because we need you to be a blocking tight end today only. We need you to at least be a serviceable blocker. So can you learn the skill set that you need to be serviceable everywhere else and then set up to win in the positions of advantage that you have?
Yep.
You're 6'7" or 6'8". You're going to be able to go up over everyone and catch that ball.
Sure.
So, anyway, that's how I think about Jacob.
Well, yeah.
Do you think he'll be able to make I guess you just don't know until you see a guy.
Oh, it's 4 catches, 4 touchdowns. I mean,
57 snaps.
yeah.
total.
You're gonna have to see him out there. But
well,
it's like,
yeah. Are you surprised that they went with an experiment like this?
absolutely
over
not.
Okay,
No,
well, I
this
didn't know
is-
if you could get him a free agent after undrafted free agent.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm sure that was a conversation that was had, but you're sure you get him if you do that.
Yeah.
Sure.
If not, if you let him go to free agency, then he gets to choose between all the people who want him.
He may want to go home to Dallas, where he grew up until
Sure.
he went to last couple years of high school in
Yeah.
Utah.
If it's worth spending a 7th round pick on a guy that you really want in your building. The issue is, it's not an issue, but the reality is he's going to require more coaching than the other guys.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a lot of attention from the tight end coach. How's he going to handle that attention? Is he going to thrive on it, or is he going to shrink on it? I've seen guys who have got all that attention shrink and like start playing tight and tense and annoyed and thinking so much because the coach was there shit all the time because
Yeah.
there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
Because you don't know this stuff, and I got to teach it to you now. Every day sucks. You suck. What are you doing? God, every time, every play. Jacob, God, what are you doing? That's what
Caleb.
we don't.
Caleb.
Caleb.
His name is Caleb.
Jacob
You
Lohner.
call him Jacob all day.
Just call him Jacob Crenshaw. That's their 8th pick.
Jacob Crenshaw.
Was their 8th pick.
Honestly, coaches might call him that because you don't deserve a first
Exactly.
name. Yeah.
Rookie. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
That kind of thing. So hopefully they have some grace with what he doesn't
Yeah.
know, and don't make it miserable for him. I've
Sure.
seen coaches make it miserable for guys who were trying to learn that, and that's not what it should be. It should be a learning environment where this guy's athleticism is bolstered by the technical skill set he learns,
Sure.
but it's gonna be a work in progress with him.
We always ask, these last couple of years, we've asked, hey, is Russ going to talk to Drew Brees? Now they're neighbors down in San Diego and all that. So it was, a Sean, Drew, Russ kind of question. Was Bo going to do that? I think Bo did maybe some, but probably didn't need to very much other than whatever. But Zach Strief was teammates with Jimmy Graham when he came in and made that transition and played all those years as a really good tight end. Went to Seattle and I think he went back to New Orleans. But so Zach was there, and now Zach's obviously the lead O-line coach. And you told me last week that O-line men and even O-line coaches tolerate most tight ends, depending on how much you're a blocker, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to be curious to see how they go through this process. It's going to be on him to really, if he wants to be a technician and get on the field sooner and beat Lucas Kroll out, because he is taller. I don't know if he's faster, but
He's pretty
at
fast. He ran
6'8".
4.5.
Yeah, so he runs 4.5. And if you watch some of his basketball, like he obviously was playing in the Pac-12 and in the Big 12 on the court.
Sure.
You know, like Cortland Sutton played at SMU, but his minutes weren't enormous.
Yeah.
And so now this kid comes in as definitely the best basketball player, even though Cortland won't give that title up. But so I think it'll be on him. Does he really want to learn? And then how do they go about teaching him? Obviously, there's a tight ends coach, but do you have Jimmy Graham around a little or do you have him come in for a weekend or send Caleb to hang out with him a little bit just to talk about making that transition and what this offense asks you to do? I think it's at least worth potentially looking at if Jimmy's open to it.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to learn from someone who's been there, especially with the same coach.
Yeah, for me, it's like his skill set is going up and grabbing the ball.
Yeah.
What he needs to work on is the things he's not good at. And those are the football things. He knows how to play basketball. He knows how to go up for the ball. That's going to come easy to him. Anytime you throw a ball to him down in the goal line, it's going to be easy. It's the other stuff.
Yeah.
Sitting in a zone, understanding how to get off a press, setting guys up for different routes, and then blocking. Yeah. Blocking is incredibly difficult and incredibly technical. And Brandon is right. If he wants to expand his role and not be a gadget guy, then he's going to have to learn that skill set. And it's really about one thing when you learn when you get to the NFL is that they're going to sniff out your weaknesses very quickly and then attack them and exploit them. And every day you'll be humiliated and because of those weaknesses until you strengthen those. My first year as a tight end was embarrassing. Every day I had to go out there and get my ass kicked and then go and watch it on film in front of all my friends and get chewed out by the same coach who chewed me out on the field. He's just doing it a little softer voice now.
Yeah.
But he's doing it again with a laser pointer on my body, slow-mo, as I get my,
and he's calling you Jeremy.
Exactly. He didn't even know my name. Well, so this is so you have to have thick skin.
Yeah.
And you're going to get to see the guy's character. And so it's important for the coaches to be critical of him and coach him hard, but then also put an arm around him and make him understand this is not personal. We're trying to get better here. I'm of course going to pat you on your butt for your good stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm also going to let you know when you messed up. And really that's what it's about.
Yeah. And if you don't want to tip your hand, and obviously having Evan Ingram, he's shown that he's a willing blocker. And that's what made Jimmy Graham. And you talk about the extreme example, Antonio Gates, who played zero football until he got to the NFL and now is getting a gold jacket here in August, and I think Antonio was a step beyond in terms of his ability to block and willingness. But you're signaling if kid's never blocking, or is it that, they're passing here, may not pass to him, but this is a pass play. And so I think that's a big part. Sort of like last year, there was a stretch where 83% of the time that Jaleel was on the field, he got the ball one way or another. And it's like, okay, we probably need to have a few more decoy plays. So he's certainly intriguing, and it'll be fun to see what he can do because Lucas Kroll had the best offseason, best spring of any. He's headed to the Hall of Fame. Although Lucas Kroll from Shawnee, Kansas,
Mill Valley,
college pitcher, we still get to see Lucas Kroll throw a pass. I mean, he pitched at Arkansas. It wasn't like he pitched at Podunk State. So.
I will say this also about the really, really tall tight ends who don't have a lot of experience. Pad level becomes a really important thing when you're talking about contact with these guys, because you're going to be taller than everyone. And these guys also know how to play low with leverage to get out and get into you. So it's really hard for a guy like what is it, Donald Parham?
Parham, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he looks exactly the same, but he couldn't get off the field, get on the field. And the times he did, he was very vulnerable. Head injuries, was just kind of playing tall. Yeah. And when you play tall like that, you're just going to get cracked all the time. And so you got to play lower. You got to drop your hips. You got to play in a more athletic stance, and that's hard to condition your body to do that. Yeah. And so that's going to be his task every day, to kind of learn how to play a little lower. And then when he does need his height, he can raise up and he'll be tall because he's tall.
And that's a great coverage of the draft for the Broncos. I want to talk about Shedeur first, but real quickly, we do need to talk about Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah.
New linebacker for the Broncos. Injury report. Who wants to go with that? Brandon?
So it came out yesterday from NBC in the Bay Area that he got hurt working out, hurt his quad. And so then you're like, and he's going to miss significant time, was what it said.
Sure.
So start doing some digging. People in town are reporting on it. I'm reaching out to people in and around the team and around Greenlaw and all that. Find out that it happened the very first day of workouts. So they knew this going into the draft. Didn't seem to phase them at all, where they thought about adding a linebacker. Unlike, say, when our pal Demaryius Thomas tore his Achilles draft weekend hooping partial tear, told them after the weekend.
Yeah.
wasn't maybe it ended up being fine, even missing games, but still, they knew about this. It happened here, first day of workouts, and then, as you started to hear people say that, it's not as big a deal, I heard from a very well-placed source that it's not only weeks, not months. If this was in season, it'd be more like 3 or 4 weeks.
Sure.
But instead, they're going to go 8 weeks because it is the same leg that he tore the Achilles on in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, 2 Super Bowls ago. So, and we know that only allowed him to play kind of part of one game last year. So you're going to just be extra careful. There's no need.
Sure.
He's a smart player. He'll be in every meeting. He'll be at every practice, watching as they go through it and or doing stuff on the side, but probably watching more than, I don't know if you need as much side work like you do once practice really gets going. Like training camp, the hurt guys are trying to get on the field. I think in the spring, you probably just are taking mental reps, which we know coaches talk about.
Mental reps.
So they're downplaying it, at least everybody around them.
That's what Scott calls it when he watches porn.
I know that
I've seen this one before.
I know that Nate, legitimately you should be concerned, but you're more concerned, I guess, than some people that I've talked to are, because even a strain is still a tear to some degree.
Well, okay, the first day of workouts, if you tear, and a strain is a tear. So you have a quad injury on your first day of workouts. First day of workouts is not that hard.
Sure.
Okay. They're not putting you through the most grueling workout. They're seeing where everyone's at. They're easing you into this thing. You know, and Sean Payton believes in this Bill Parcells, and Mike Shanahan was from the same tree, where the first month or so is just running and lifting. That's all this was. It wasn't some crazy thing. They went and they lifted, and then they went and probably ran some striders or some quick, nothing crazy at all. He couldn't finish the season. He came back this season, and they shut him down after 2 games because his Achilles wasn't right yet.
Yeah.
Okay. He tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And now on the very first day of workouts, his quad pops. And it's based on who you talk to. It's either a strain, a tear. He's fine. It's not a big deal. But he's missing 8 weeks at the beginning of training from a first day injury on a quad. To me, that signals a little bit of trouble with his body.
Yeah.
So now he's going to get and it was his first day with Bo Lowry. So he wasn't coming in from working out with Bo Lowry. So now he's going to get on the Bo Lowry program and hopefully get his body right. But there can be a kind of a chain reaction thing when you have an injury, especially as you get older in this league. One thing gets hurt, and then you rehab that thing, and then because of the way you rehab it and the way your body has responded to that, it makes another area vulnerable that you didn't even realize, because you're adding stress to a certain area by staying off the other area. And it's just the body's very complex when it comes to football. And Dre Greenlaw plays the game so fast, so aggressive, so balls to the wall that his body eventually is going to break. The human body can't withstand that speed and velocity for very long. And so it's really important that they don't rush him back here. It's really important that they allow him to heal. But at the same time, he plays the game with such reckless abandon. And also he wants to get out there with his buddies, right? Yeah. His new teammate. He wants to be the leader of that defense. He's be right in the middle. So there's this weird pressure thing now too, that he may not be feeling it all from anyone else, but he feels it himself, to prove that he belongs on this team and deserves the contract they gave him. He wants to go out there and earn it with his buddies, right? And now he's got to start the season, or at least the offseason program and the mini camps and stuff, not practicing and not creating that chemistry with his teammates, which can put you behind the 8 ball a little bit.
Well, if you remember, the injury in the Super Bowl was a non-contact injury. He was coming onto the field.
Yeah.
And so does that concern you that day one of his injury was just a light
It's
workout?
a very similar injury.
Yeah.
It's a pop.
Yeah.
It's a non-contact pop when nothing else is around and you're just doing a straight line thing.
Yeah.
And without knowing exactly what drill he was doing when he hurt his quad, but those are tendon, ligament, soft tissue issues that absolutely are concerning. Yeah. And so it's like, you got to go back. It's like, was it a diet thing? What was going on with your training? What was there something making you vulnerable? Was it a freak accident thing?
Sure.
So the good thing about this training staff here is one of the best in the league at keeping players healthy. So if anyone can get him back, the Broncos can.
Yeah. Sure. And I haven't seen, but we're going to assume that it happened running. There's certainly a scenario where it could have happened lifting. So I probably just need to do a little digging to clarify that. But when you were talking about Bo Lowry, it reminded me when we talked to Savion Jones, because I asked him, hey, you had Bo Lowry in Baton Rouge and Sean stole him back. And he's like, oh, that'll be great. But also, and this is just made me think about with Savion Jones, the Broncos D-line coach came from LSU and was his position coach there, helped recruit him to LSU. So I think that's a good thing too, just the familiarity with the player. Yeah. And they had that a few times kind of throughout this draft.
Sure. Yep. And I mean, getting back to the draft, getting back into the fiasco.
Yeah.
That was Shedeur Sanders' draft stock, kind of, I guess, because people had him as early as 2. And we talked about how he might fall out of the first round.
Yeah.
We didn't know maybe 5th round,
Yeah.
whatever it was, and we didn't necessarily think that he would be the second quarterback drafted by the Browns.
Yeah.
But kind of also with the prank call, with all the kind of stuff going on with the retired number, what has this last month been like for Shedeur Sanders, you think?
I mean, there's still reports coming out about, the interviews
The
and
day
things
ball
that
interview.
happen. And when I look at it, I think that NFL teams didn't want the distraction
Sure.
of bringing in Shedeur Sanders and his father to the program. And that's what, the D word, the big D, the big distraction.
D.
The big D.
I know that word.
Is something that all NFL coaches want to avoid no matter what. They want to be able to predict exactly how the routine is going to go, what their guys are going to be like, the media attention that they're going to get. They try to keep everything in-house. Mike Shanahan used to say, look, if you got – it's fine to have all these political views and really in business aspirations, but you don't use your platform here to talk about politics, religion, or business. You just don't do it. There's no way any GM or coach could look at Shedeur Sanders and the circus that's existed around him and think that he would adhere to a philosophy like that.
Sure.
He has flaunted his money in a way that I think is not becoming of a leader of a group of men. He made $6 million last year, more than probably 90% of the guys in an NFL locker room.
Sure.
Okay. The quarterback makes $50 million a year on an NFL team. But the thing about the quarterback is he's humble about it. He knows he makes more than everyone else.
Sure.
But if that's your thing, in my opinion, you're not a very good leader. When's the last time there was like a look at me quarterback who won the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
No, you guys tell me.
Mahomes probably.
Yeah, Mahomes. You know what I'm saying?
Says the KU grad.
Yeah,
Leadership,
I'm a big Mahomes
and whether or
fan.
not Shedeur might be the best leader ever.
Yeah.
But I don't think the trajectory, the retired number, the there's just been so much shit involved in it that I think has turned people off to it. They want to know that their investment fits the mold of what they see a leader looking like in their building.
Sure.
And Shedeur has done things so drastically different from anyone ever in that position that I think it turned people off. And the draft spoke to that.
Yeah.
Teams did not want to give that sort of responsibility to him, knowing that his father was going to come along with him. And Coach Prime is the best to ever do it at his position. But he didn't play quarterback.
Yeah.
He played cornerback. He was what? On an island. Corners are on an island. So go be prime time over there on the island.
He was so good he could play corner and play baseball on the same day.
Yep.
Yeah.
But you couldn't have a quarter. Kyler Murray can't play outfield for the A's and then play in the Sunday night game for the Cardinals or vice versa.
And you're the guy who's in the huddle looking everyone in the eye. Everyone has to trust you. And to do that, they have to feel like you trust them, like you care about them. There's a reason why Jay Cutler didn't work out here, and it wasn't about his physical skills. It was about his leadership. His leadership wasn't good enough. He didn't look his teammates in the eye and care about them. He wasn't humble enough. Jake Plummer was, and he was a fantastic leader. And when these guys draft guys to be a quarterback for their organization, it's about probably over half of it is about that intangible, that leadership, that feel. Are you one of the guys? Are you going to rally the guys? Are they going to feel like you're one of them? Like you have their back too. Yeah. And I'm not saying this isn't going to be Shedeur at the next level. What I'm saying is the perception is that it wasn't going to be.
Yeah.
And I think that, all these stories that are come out post-draft about some of the draft, interviews that went the wrong way. Who knows how accurate those are? But I just think that it comes down to that distraction.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you about, BK. I think the one I saw was about how unprepared he was for the Giants meeting. Did you hear that about the Giants meeting and then more, or just the Giants meeting in general?
Well, so what was interesting was when he had that with the Giants, and they did the exact same thing that Sean Payton and every coach will do when they have a private quarterback workout. Last year after the Oregon Pro Day, famously, Sean's talked about it. They gave Bo Nix a similar binder or an iPad or whatever they gave him. And Sean said it was far too much information at 5:00 after going through your whole pro day to be ready to have the next day. And they may have even gone to dinner, but regardless. And then Bo was able to, when they got on the whiteboard before they got out on the field or whatever order they did it in, regurgitate way more, and be way more familiar with it than they thought. And actually, it reminds me real quick, a funny story. The now late Wade Wilson, quarterback coach for the Cowboys, he loved Dak so much that when they went and had a private workout with Dak, and Dak told Jason Garrett this, because Jason told the story the other day on Dan Patrick, Wade gave him all the answers to the test.
Sure.
So Wade had sent it to him ahead of time because he wanted Dak so badly. But I don't think the Broncos did that with Bo Nix. Clearly, the Giants didn't do that. And so I saw the Giants after the workout getting off the elevator at the parking lot at CU's. I was going just for the spring game pre-press conference. But I saw one of their personnel people say, how did the workout go? So it went great. Because that was the account. The workout was fine, just like it was when 13 people were at the actual pro day. But they gave him a binder with whatever, 100 pages worth of plays, and he didn't take the time to learn it. Not that he couldn't, but that's how much he thought, oh, I'm going to be fine. They'll take me or they won't. He's had bad advice, perhaps most of his life in how you go about certain things. His dad's been his coach forever, and that has pluses and minuses. The minuses that he hasn't been taken to task the way other QBs often are. Then he's at the East-West Shrine game, not the Senior Bowl. The East-West Shrine game, they have a way more influence because it's a smaller game. It was in Dallas. You got to stay home. Doesn't play in that. Practiced some. Doesn't throw at the combine, which is fine. Cam Ward didn't. Lots of quarterbacks don't. But all these chances to go show, oh, I'm just a competitor. I'm just a guy. Then you hear that he may have taken a FaceTime call in one of the meetings and finished the call before when he's meeting with one of the teams. And he kind of sandbagged himself. Doesn't have an agent. So you don't have the agent advocating for you with teams to get maybe a little more real info, because the teams know they have to deal with agents, because the agent doesn't represent one guy. They represent 20. So they have to be kind of straight up. That's why Shiloh had to hire Drew Rosenhaus to get on the Bucks. Yeah. Because Deion can't call. He's not calling 32 teams to say, hey, do you want to sign Shiloh? He's got a couple people he can call. Yeah. And so I think that the whole process and a good majority of his life, it's been so good for him. And he is a very talented player. I think if it's all equal, he has a chance to win that job at some point. Maybe not week 1. But if they go out there and it's open this spring and he gets in and minicamp goes well with he and Dylan Gabriel, and it's in the classroom showing he can do it, and it's just being a guy, and Deion Jr. isn't flying in to kind of shoot his life or other, and it's just Shedeur doing football, I like his chances. If it's all the other stuff, then he's going to end up like Johnny Manziel without even the snaps to prove it.
Yeah, 5 quarterbacks there right now. They got Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson, Pickett. Already a circus, Deshaun Watson, right? And then you're going to ask for this extra circus act, you know? Yeah. And because you got Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and then a Dylan Gabriel guy they drafted 2 rounds ahead. So they obviously like Dylan Gabriel more, right? Because they drafted him ahead of him. So when you think about reps being split up, now we watched camp last year between Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, and Zach Wilson. They split those reps 3 ways, and that wasn't a lot. There's a period of 12 plays. They go 4-4-4. So how do you split up a period of 12 plays with 5 quarterbacks who you all think could end up on the roster? Because oftentimes, you know, there's camp bodies that you just don't get a lot of reps. They'll just do scout stuff. You know they're not going to make the team. Which one of these guys do you know is not going to make the team? None of them, right? Yeah. So you want to give them all equal opportunity. So that's 2 reps every 10. How do you make an impression there? So this is going to be about who they just like more.
Real quick, it's only going to be 4 going into camp with the report that Deshaun had to set back on his Achilles repair. But you got to think that Joe Flacco. Now, Joe Flacco doesn't need 1 snap of practice. I'm not saying he doesn't, but you want to see that he can still play.
Yeah, but he'll still get more because
he's Joe. Yeah, he's Joe Flacco. Kenny Pickett has started a bunch of games in the NFL.
And you also want your offense to be ready to go. It's not just about the quarterback. So you want an experienced quarterback taking first-team reps so the rest of the offense can do their job and be on time. If you're teaching a rookie to go in there, you know, he's going to have to take some time to learn the system and work his way in there. But I want to make another comment about this slide. And I don't think it was just, you know, I'm not blaming Shedeur for everything that happened. There was a lot of, as I put it in a tweet, deriding fanboys who created this energy that was annoying as shit to people who just want to concentrate on football. All this sort of internet clout and money and content and all that stuff that GMs and coaches want to avoid. They don't want that noise. They just don't. And while it worked to make them a lot of money in NIL, while it worked to bring a lot of eyeballs to the program, they went 13-12 while he was here, and now he's gone. And the answer was that GMs and coaches of NFL teams didn't like that. They didn't think that was the thing that was going to work for them or want to have that work for them. They wanted to avoid it altogether, and so they were willing to not draft a guy who might be more talented than the quarterback they have or the quarterback they're looking at because of the noise that came with it. And the noise that came with it was not all Shedeur's fault. It was all the sycophants around him. I don't know if I used that the right way, but all the people around him telling him that he was a legend, telling him how great he was, telling him his rap songs were good when they weren't. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was too much. And this should be a lesson, I think, to quarterbacks or all players coming out, that it should be about football and that you can turn people off by creating this kind of fantasy around it.
Even with all the circus that we talked about, people thought he was talented. Clearly, he was projected to draft high. But do you see the Browns kind of using him as, like, I don't know, trade bait?
If he plays well, and so much of what they do is dictated by the ridiculous Deshaun Watson contract, and unless he can stay hurt, they can't really get out from under it. And that would mean that he would retire and they'd figure out how to move on and get the rest of the money off the books. But that's why you bring in Joe Flacco, because he didn't really cost anything anymore. Kenny Pickett, they traded for him with the Eagles, was like a 5th or whatever. Yeah. Dylan Gabriel, who, by the way, also has a bit of a helicopter dad, and his dad was certainly more involved. And there's stories about that, whether it was at Oregon or his other stops before that, OU and all that. And so, you know, what's funny is I did see a tweet that's like, if you'd have taken Shedeur 33, the linebacker, and just pushed everything back and taken Dylan Gabriel in the 5th, no one would have said anything about the draft. But you literally, before round 2 started Friday, you had Donald Trump sending out tweets or whatever, truths and all that about missing on Shedeur. What I heard about the reason Mel Kiper loves Shedeur so much is because Shedeur does process what he needs. Like, he didn't make bad reads. Does he hold the ball too long? Maybe. Is he throwing or holding on to it to not throw incompletions to keep that percentage up? Maybe. But he didn't throw into a lot of traffic too often. He has some good traits, and that's why I think some of the evaluators had him higher. But there's a chance, and Mel Kiper doesn't work for a team, that Deion and his people around him, including Pat Shurmur, didn't do enough due diligence around the league to find out what the rest of the league really thought of Shedeur going into the draft process, to where it's automatically like, oh, but he or Cam Ward, and very quickly other teams, all the teams seem to at least have Cam Ward there and other quarterbacks before Shedeur for all the reasons. But now if he brings the hype too, or the distraction, it's going to be him bringing it, only because the first day of rookie minicamp, ESPN will be there.
Sure.
NFL Network will be there. 60 Minutes isn't showing up to rookie minicamp. They're probably not even showing up to training camp. Like, there's not, the Tebow thing was bigger and different. Shedeur is a football thing, and so the NFL will cover it a little more. Charles Robinson from Yahoo will come over.
It really depends on how Shedeur and his father handle whatever happens. If he's not playing, if he's not getting opportunities, and then, you know, Coach Prime makes a big deal about it, and
that's a distraction.
Exactly. And you could see that happening.
100%.
And and coaches know that. Like, the pro day up there, NFL scouts were trying to tell these guys how to do some stuff, and Coach Prime steps in. He's like, you ain't going to tell them what to do.
Yeah.
They're going to do it how they want. You don't think they took note of that?
Sure.
Like, are you going to be meddling in everything we try to do? This is our job now. You got to step back. And I know that they were creating this sort of environment there that could let these players shine and stuff like that. But these scouts, like, they've been doing this for a long time. They know what they're doing. They know what they want to ask. They see from these players, and they know how to ask for it. And Coach Prime wanted to step in and say, no, we're doing it our way. And so that's not what football is about. Yeah. A football team is about you falling in and being one of the guys and allowing yourself to become part of the head coach's vision. And would Deion have allowed that? At the Super Bowl, Deion was taking interviews and saying, we're not going to play for this team. We're not going to play for that team. We're not going to play for that team.
Yeah.
You don't think those GMs and coaches were turned off by that?
Of course.
You're not going to play for us if we draft you? Then we're not going to draft you.
Yeah.
We're going to go somewhere else because of that distraction. Why would we draft a kid whose father says, no, we're not going there? So he slid. He slid for a variety of reasons. But I don't think Deion Sanders did his son any favors in this process.
Sure.
And I hope that he learns from it, because guess what? This is going to affect his recruiting at CU. You don't think Juju went, to see this slide? Shedeur Sanders was supposed to be the number 1 or number 2 pick in the draft, and he's a 5th round pick. Why? Because Deion Sanders mismanaged it from a height perspective. And so Juju, the new quarterback there, has got to be looking at this like, is this going to be my fate? Deion Sanders has to learn from this, and I think soften his tone when it comes to this stuff, or else I think he could lose some of the momentum around the program.
A couple of things related to the Browns, and Conga Hydra says maybe Deion will be the next Browns coach. The Browns ownership is not good. Go read the ESPN piece that Seth Wickersham did a couple of years ago about how dysfunctional it is with Jimmy and Dee Haslam, and I think their son's involved now too. They're not in the building every day. They're in Tennessee a lot, but they're around enough to certainly meddle. And so, did Jimmy Haslam have something to do with this? Maybe. And I saw where somebody said that, oh, this is an ownership pick. Well, and look at the way Stefanski and Andrew Berry look on their little,
Yeah, they're not
the
happy.
camera, but
They're
it's
like this.
just coincidence.
They're not shaking hands.
Total
No, they're
coincidence.
smiling around.
And I wasn't paying attention during the draft when we're sitting next to a Browns player who's now getting a teammate that is going to play with him in the rotation right after they didn't get Travis Hunter. So I was not watching Kevin and Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, and Andrew Berry, the GM. But NFL Network reran the draft yesterday. And while I was watching the afternoon basketball games and out just at a sports bar, the draft is on. And they go to that pick. They've just now traded from 2 to 5, taking a guy that they want, that they need, because as Shelby pointed out, they only have 3 D linemen, and picked up next year's Jacksonville pick, which could easily be a top 10 pick. Again, their expression was almost identical. As they took Mason Graham, the pick, and normally you see first round pick, we're hyped, Stefanski and Andrew Berry were just sitting there as the pick was being.
They probably didn't want to trade that number 2 pick.
And
they probably wanted Travis.
Yeah, and they may not have. So it may have just been the theme of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dion is going to take the Browns job. I don't know if it'll be offered to him, but Jimmy Haslam is high on the list of owners that are silly enough that they might consider that. Mark Davis probably used to be, but Tom Brady's involvement now will likely, and even Pete Carroll being there, will likely soften that. And Jerry is certainly another wild card. But Jimmy Haslam was high on the list. So that is possible, but I don't think that's why they didn't draft him. I think they just didn't want to deal with the other stuff. They already have the Deshaun Watson thing that they didn't necessarily want done the way it was executed. And so that's why I think that was sort of, they're like, okay, we got to get through this season. We got to win games and rely on the talent we have. But I do think Shedeur, if it's a fair fight and he just comes in and plays football and studies football and is just a good teammate, then I think that he's got a chance to play or potentially win the job.
It's gonna be interesting because 5 quarterbacks is just hard. For even four who you like, because they obviously like all 4 of those guys.
Well, but you're not keeping those 4 plus Watson on the roster.
That's what I'm saying.
This is going to get decided by the end of training camp, preseason.
Right, but will Shedeur get enough reps to show that? And maybe he ends up on the practice squad, and that's not the worst thing for him. He can just go there and get to work and just be a humble, hardworking player like everybody else in that locker room, and just be like one of the guys. One thing I know is he's not going to make close to as much money as he made in college in the NFL.
He still has a Gatorade and a T-Mobile deal. I don't know when those expire.
Yeah,
but he's on Gatorade commercials. He's on T-Mobile commercials. I don't think those were just draft commercials.
You have to think it's got to be healthy for him to be away from Dion for his first year of pro ball.
I think so too.
Yeah, I wonder what happens to those endorsements though when he's not the guy anymore.
I mean, they dropped Baker once he stopped being he was on every commercial, known to man, and they dropped him pretty fast.
Yeah, so I guess we'll find out. Does Gatorade keep running that? Because Caitlin Clark is in that one that he was in. A bunch of people are in it. Do they keep running, or was a draft weekend only? Same with T-Mobile. Do I care what phone Shedeur is?
Why can't Gatorade sponsor 5th rounders, huh?
I guess they could. I mean, Tom Brady was a 6th rounder, but he obviously earned his endorsements. So I sent Andy over that Warren Sharp chart to give you an idea. We can look at the rest of the entire draft, but this is essentially the most valuable draft classes this year. And so you see, based on just the perceived value of, it says top 250 picks. So the Broncos, all 7 certainly are in the top 250, but where it ranks, they're the third from the bottom with the Titans. And part of that is that they took Cam 1-1.
It's funny too because Niners, barring last year's performance, one of the best teams in the league. The Detroit Lions, one of the best teams in the league. Minnesota Vikings were a really good team last year. Packers were a playoff team. Texans were a playoff team. So 5-6 playoff teams in those bottom.
The Rams 10. don't. They seem to fare well without having first rounders for 8 years.
And then the Philadelphia Eagles near the top there, but your other top 3 teams there, not playoff teams. And you just never know how it's going to shape out. But so this is Warren Sharp's.
Yeah, but based on an aggregation of kind of the consensus, and even now it still doesn't matter. Measuring these draft classes, you look at what they are against themselves this year, but no one really tracks over time other than we can tell you, so-and-so ended up being a hit. Tom Brady 6th round or whatever, pick a player, undrafted guy that makes it along. Chris Harris, undrafted, ends up on an all-decade team. We can name Jamarcus Russell and Ryan. We can do all that, but no one really tracks the entire team's draft. Because what happens is the GM gets fired, I guess, is the easiest way to track it. They don't have their job for very long because it didn't go well. But I just thought it was interesting to look at the Broncos overdrafting, but them also they don't care because they were a playoff team. And like you said, playoff
Yeah.
teams can take more chances because they're already a playoff team.
And you have a specific vision for the type of guy you need for your team. And so, like, if you love a guy and he's available and you think he might not be available the next time you get to pick, then take him, and don't overthink it. When it came down to it, the Broncos stood pat at 20 and picked the best guy on the board for them. And I love the way they approached it, filling some needs throughout. But of course, you're not going to know until these guys get out on the field with their teammates and start trying to execute the vision of their coaches. You never know how that's going to go. Of course, injuries will factor in, personal life stuff, just all the human stuff that is involved in all this stuff. Not all these guys are going to hit, but we hope they do.
Looking at the local guys too, just some of the teammates, the guys that got drafted with, that played with Shedeur, LeJohntay Wester and Jimmy Horn Jr. go 6 picks apart.
Yeah.
Jonte's going to the Ravens, where I think he's going to part of that return game. Jimmy Horn in Carolina, we know that there's certainly opportunities because they're still an evolving roster without a true number one receiver, I don't think. And so we'll see how they work out. As we mentioned, Shiloh went to Tampa. Will Shepard also undrafted to Tampa. A bunch of their guys, or a handful of their guys that were undrafted, signed places. Local ties, Terrence Ferguson, was he the third tight end taken, I think, after after Tyler Warren and Colson Lovin in the first.
Yeah.
He went in the second round to the Rams at 46 with that pick that they had traded back, getting from the Falcons or whatever. And so Gunnar Helm, the Heritage product, played at Oregon with Bo Nix, all Pac-12 2 years ago. He is headed to L.A. Gunnar Helm, who played for Dave Logan, Texas product, 4th rounder, headed to Tennessee. And so you see those guys, and then Torrey Horton goes in the 5th round to the Seahawks, who I think got a steal. I think Torrey Horton was
he had an injury.
Yeah, the injury really ruined his senior year, but he was Mountain West Player of the Year. And then saw a handful, like one of the CU linemen is going to come to rookie mini camp. That just means you're there for the weekend. Blake Stenstrom, who won a couple championships at Valor as a quarterback, played at CU, then transferred to Princeton. He's going to be there for the weekend. He'll be the guy throwing to them when they're on the field. So it's fun to see the local ties and what they might end up doing. But
last year it was the Colorado School of Mines quarterback.
Yeah. God, I can't remember his name. John Matoka.
Matoka, is he playing in Canada?
Or probably, or UFL. Like, the guy's obviously super smart. There's not a lot of dummies walking around that campus.
Matoka Bowl after this.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Hey.
Well, let's get out of here on that then. This has been off field.
Well, I just know, were there any other drafts that you were like, oh, that looked like a good draft? Like the Raiders seem to have a good draft. I was like, oh, finally, they're just kind of Raiders.
JT, and who else they get?
Well, they got as they were just going through it, it was like, oh, they added alignment. It's just
I
like
don't
a
really
solid...
follow college well enough to know like what these guys are about. Raiders clearly got themselves a generational type of back, so hopefully, for their sake, they can use them right. For our sake, we can pound them.
Oh, now can we go?
Yeah, we can go.
Okay, guys, this has been one hell of a show for Nate Jackson.
Oh, I'm
for
sorry.
Brandon Krisztal. I'll stop.
I did forget to mention a really important part of what we do around here. We couldn't do this without the love of our sponsors, Accurate America. Guys, you never know when and where the hail is going to hit when the storms come in the summertime. Bam, they're banging on your roof, and all of a sudden you got roof damage. The last thing you want is to get caught scrambling when it happens. So make the call before the storm happens, guys, before the storm. Call Accurate America. They'll partner with you on navigating insurance. That can be a pain in the butt. They know how to do that with quick, professional, and knowledgeable service using the latest technology and 3D modeling, guys. And their work is guaranteed for you as long as you own your home. So give them a call. Don't scramble at the last minute. 303-900-ROOF. That's 303-900-ROOF before the storm. Accurate America. We love you guys. Thank you for the support. And, hey, that should do it for us.
This is off field. That's Brandon Krisztal, BK. That's Nate Jackson, NJ. Scott Shaffer, SS. Bye.
Bye.
Wish flower.